let's talk fitness and let's talk parallels with DE&I. Let's you guys are your gym guys. I one time was. You see my kids on the wall behind me. They slow me down a bit. They're 3 now, but you go to the gym every day. That's right. You look at the biceps. You're working the bicep machine, and you're like, man, you know what? I like the results I'm getting from my bicep workouts. I'm going to continue to do my bicep workout, and I'm going to ignore everything else because to me, from my perspective, it's not affecting me. It doesn't affect me. I'm fine. I don't need to do anything else. I like my biceps. They're getting me where I want to be. And then you come to find out, your legs are weaker. You're having an issue walking to the car. If something happens, you can't run anywhere because you're not working your legs out. But to you, to your perception, I didn't need to do that because my biceps are working for me. The same thing happens with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I will always hear from a CEO, look, we're making money. We're doing what we want to do. We've got a great staff. Why do I need to be inclusive? What is the ROI for me to invest in this? And from starters, if you're looking to address diversity, equity, and inclusion, you come to me and say, what's the reason for me to invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion? And then you're starting with your ROI, but you're not making a real difference. So you're thinking about yourself and doesn't help anybody else. But what you don't realize is by not working out your legs, by not working out your arms, by not working out your core, it's a full, well-oiled machine. So if you're working out so well and then boom, COVID-19 hits, and all of a sudden you don't know how to operate any way differently because you've always thought the way that you think, your organization's having trouble. And we're seeing that with a lot of organizations that have operated the same way and have not been inclusive, but you can get those people on staff, those people that say, hey, well, this organization is doing this, or how about we address this culture? What's this culture looking at? There's a guy that works for Google. I can't think of his name, but he has this really cool calendar. And every day of the year, there's something different for a different culture that they accept or they do. So when you go to your organization and look, we have our mission, vision, and our values, right? But we've got these employees that are quiet and they say, hey, this is great. We think this is awesome. We're going to celebrate this holiday. But what about the employee that has a holiday of his or her own that's in your organization and they know it comes and they ask for that day off? And you're like, well, why do you need that off? That's not nothing that we usually celebrate in our organization. But there goes your morale. There goes your champion for your organization, the person that's going out every day saying this organization is great. So there's these little small things that we don't think about that we need to work out in our own organization to have that inclusive voice or that culture change where culture is constantly changing. It's a constant, never-ending improvement. How can we do this? We're doing this great. Now, how can we do it better? And that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Great. You've got women and men on your board. Are they involved in leadership positions? Great. You've got people that are, you've hired some veterans. Great. We've got the Hampton Roads area, the 757, and we've got the one of the largest military populations. How many veterans, mental health, PTSD facilities do you see in our area? How inclusive are we to that community that we really thrive off of? So we can always do better. If you're at an organization that says, hey, I got it. I'm in the gym. I'm buff. I don't need to do anything. I'm there. I'm where I want to be. And that's your end goal. You're doing it wrong.
Well, you're doing the full body workout. You're doing the single move. I think that's the moral of that. What's interesting is, so about 10 years ago, I was doing a ton of events, and I'm going to assume I was using a Google Calendar or an Apple Calendar, and they weren't showing a ton of holidays at that point. And so I had booked an event that was on a Jewish holiday. And as a non-Jewish guy, I didn't know to think about something like that. And so this guy emailed me and he was like, hey, like this is a Jewish holiday. I'm sure a ton of your potential attendees aren't going to come because it's a Jewish holiday. And I was like, oh, wow. And so after that, I can't remember if I rescheduled, canceled, what I did with that specific event. But after that, I looked at a calendar of those things to make sure, hey, like, are you booking this on a day when it's not the, quote unquote, normal holidays, but it's still a normal holiday if you get what I mean. And so it's little things like that if you really want to include someone, as little and as stupid as it is to include that, stupid easy to include something like that. Like, how hard is it to just look at that calendar and say, oh, don't do it on this day, right? There's nothing difficult about that. You just got to include it. And so I think it's important from a leadership perspective, from an organization or an organizer perspective, to just cross the T, dot the I, look at the little thing and say, is this a date that's going to affect a lot of people? And are you willing to change that for it? And so I think you have to live and you learn from that.
That's it. And that goes to a point that Tim was talking about earlier. And I think you both mentioned it. How can we start to address some of these things when we know businesses are suffering from COVID-19? And a lot of the times, because we look to our C-suite individuals and our organizations, we don't realize we've got people that have those answers that are at the front line of our organization, but we don't turn to them for answers. Save yourself some money and bring those staff into these leadership discussions so that they'll say, hey, excuse me, boss, I know we're getting ready to have this event on this day, but Hanukkah starts here, right, so we should probably not do that. It doesn't take you to go out and spend thousands of dollars or hire somebody to tell you not to have an event on that day. So there's ways that you can do it without spending a bunch of money.
Tim had shared with me this article recently that Elon Musk had talked about MBAs compared to people. Basically, to me, it's like the person in the boardroom versus the person that's actually in the ground level doing it. Tim, can you, because I feel like it's the exact same thing he's saying.
Yeah, it was just he was at a conference recently talking about the fact that it's of his opinion that there's too many MBAs out that are leading businesses right now, that there needs to be more people that are focused on the product and sales that are out there on the floor and continuing to push the business forward versus creating PowerPoint slides and attending meetings.
Yeah, that's where you get your information from. I think I'm not up to date now, but I know maybe a year or two ago, the highest YouTube channel was a young kid playing with toys. And parents and kids were tuning in. They loved this kid playing with toys. And the thing is that he wasn't the CEO that created the toy, but what he is he's the person that's engaged with it every day. He understands the toy. He understands what to do with it. He understands how it works, and he's excited about that toy. There are people in your organization that are the front line, people that are always talking to customers, that know what the customer needs, that hear the customer complaints, that never make it to the CEO half the time. But when we go to address what we need to do to help bring in more customers, to bring in more revenue, we get around the table with C-suite people and discuss it. And oftentimes they're not in the same seats as the people that are at the front of the table. So some of the greatest ideas are left in your organization, and you don't know it because we're not inclusive, even in our own organizations.